Have you ever had a feeling you couldn't quite name? One that kept surfacing at the strangest moments? Late at night when the house finally went quiet, or in the middle of a perfectly ordinary Saturday, doing something completely routine, and suddenly there it was again. A feeling with no clear cause, no obvious trigger, just this small, persistent pull at something you couldn't identify. And your first instinct, every single time, was to push it down, to get busy, to find something useful to do, to call someone, make a list, move on to the next thing, because sitting with a feeling that has no name felt indulgent, like a distraction from what actually needed doing. I did that for years, and I want to tell you what I finally found when I stopped. I'm Dee Dee Sung, a leadership coach in my 60s, and someone who spent far longer than I'd like to admit running from exactly this feeling. Now, if you recognize what I'm describing, if somewhere in the last 60 seconds something in you said, yes, that's it, that's the thing, I want you to know something first. You didn't do anything wrong. Women in our generation were taught, sometimes explicitly, sometimes just by the culture we grew up in, that uncomfortable feelings were not productive, that sitting with something difficult was self-indulgent, that looking too hard inward was at best a luxury and at worst a kind of weakness. We were taught to move forward, to stay useful, to take care of what was in front of us. So we learned to cope the way we knew how. We stayed busy. We poured ourselves into work, family, other people's needs. We kept moving. And from the outside, that looked like strength. It felt like strength. And for a long time it worked, or at least it looked like it was working. But here's the truth I had to learn the hard way. Running from a feeling isn't strength. It's just a different kind of exhaustion. Because the feeling doesn't disappear, it just gets quieter. And the quieter it gets, the less you trust it. And the less you trust it, over months, over years, the more disconnected you become from the one voice in your life that was actually trying to help you, your own. If you're hearing yourself in this, if you're thinking, yes, I know this feeling, stay with me. I'm going to name it. And then I want to show you why it's not what you think it is. And now let's keep going. I want to share a moment with you. I remember exactly where I was. It was during one of the most turbulent periods of my early 50s. And in one particular moment, a wave of regret about a relationship with a family member came over me. Someone I loved. And underneath the regret sat something heavier. Shame. The kind that makes you want to justify everything, explain everything, convince yourself you did the best you could. And even when I managed that, even when I found the justification, I knew there was more underneath that I wasn't ready to look at. And I can still feel the moment I shut down. And what I did instead of staying with it was to reach for food, not because I was hungry, because it was the fastest way to make the feeling stop, to stuff it back down where it couldn't bother me. That moment wasn't the only one. There were far more like it. Here's what I can tell you from my own experience. This feeling was with me for a long time, decades honestly. From my 30s, there was a low-grade hum, something I couldn't name but could feel in my body when it surfaced. And I got very good at managing it. Not resolving it, managing it. I learned exactly how it felt when it arrived, exactly what thoughts came with it, and exactly how to keep moving so I didn't have to sit with it for very long. Staying busy looked exactly like that, refusing to unpack it, letting the next thing on the list take priority over the feeling underneath. And for years, that worked well enough. But in my early 50s, several significant things in my life converged all at once. The kind of events that don't give you the option of looking away anymore. And that's when the weight of what I'd been holding finally became undeniable. You see, what I didn't understand then was that what you don't face doesn't stay where you left it. And that shame about that one relationship, it didn't stay there. That's what unexamined shame does. It doesn't stay in one room. It moves through the whole house. It became a story I held about myself, about my self-worth, about what I had and hadn't become, about whether the life I'd lived so far was enough. For years, without fully facing it, I carried a deep judgment of myself, a story that all the twists and turns my life had taken meant I had somehow fallen behind, that I should have more to show for my years by now. I compared myself constantly to women I felt had accomplished more, accumulated more, and every comparison made the story I was telling myself a little worse. And the cost of all that running away was real. It showed up in my health, in my immune system, in a steady erosion of my confidence. It cost me relationships with others, and more importantly, with myself. It was a heavy weight, and the hardest part was knowing somewhere inside that I was choosing to keep it, because facing it felt scarier than the weight of it. It took monumental life events and the support of people I trusted to finally make me stop. Not because I was ready, because I no longer had a choice, but to finally face it or risk losing even more of myself. What I'd been avoiding all those years? It was regret. Regret for the time lost to judgment of myself, my path, my choices. Regret for the years I spent measuring my life against everyone else's instead of my own. That was the feeling I'd been avoiding, and I'd been doing it since my 30s. But something shifted. Not overnight, but it shifted. And what changed wasn't my circumstances. What changed was how I understood the feeling itself. And here's what I finally learned. 3 truths that took me far too long to see. The first truth is this: regret doesn't exist in a vacuum. It only lives where something mattered, and something still matters to you, deeply. Think about that for a moment. You cannot feel the weight of a path you never wanted. You cannot grieve a direction that was never truly yours. The fact that regret keeps coming back, no matter how many times you've pushed it down, is not evidence against you. It's evidence that the real you, the one underneath all the roles, all the responsibilities, is still completely present. That's not a problem, that's a signal. Regret isn't punishment for the choices you made. It's pointing towards something, specifically. The life you still want to live. The woman you still want to become. The dreams that got set aside while everything else came first. Regret knows exactly what those dreams are, even when you've told yourself it's too late to go after them. Women often tell me, I don't know what I want anymore. And I understand that. After decades of organizing your life around what was needed by your family, your career, the question of what you actually want can feel almost impossible to answer. But regret, it already knows. It's been trying to tell you. You just haven't let yourself hear it yet. And the third truth? This is the one that changed everything for me. Regret is not about what's already gone. That's what we assume. We think it's the past pulling at us. We think it's about what we didn't do, who we didn't become, what we let go of. So we treat it like something to be ashamed of, something to get past. But here's what I know. The reason regret keeps coming back, no matter how many times you push it down, is because what matters to you hasn't changed. It's still there, waiting. Regret doesn't visit the dead, it visits the living. It visits the people who still have choices in front of them. It's not a verdict on your past, it's a signal about what still matters. That distinction changes everything about what you do next, starting with this. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Regret, the feeling you've been pushing away, the one that surfaces at the worst possible times. It is one of the most trustworthy things inside you, and you can waste it. Not through some deliberate wrong turn. You can waste it just by keeping busy, by waiting for the feeling to pass, by telling yourself it isn't useful, that dwelling on it is self-pity. I've watched women do this. not because they were weak, but because nobody ever told them what regret actually was, so they kept running. And eventually it went quiet, and they thought they'd finally moved past it. But they hadn't. They'd just stopped being able to hear the signal. The women who don't waste it do something different. They get still, just a moment's pause in the middle of an ordinary day, and in that pause they ask, what is this pointing toward? They don't need the whole answer right away, they just name it. They let it be real, and that is what keeps it alive long enough to act on it. This is what the inner work of midlife actually looks like. It begins with the willingness to stop and hear what you actually know to be true. So here's what I want to ask you. What is the one thing regret, if you let yourself really hear it, is pointing you toward? Not everything, just one thing. You don't have to share it with anyone. You don't have to act on it today, but say it out loud or write it down just once. Because the moment you name it, that's when it stops being something you run from and starts being something you can actually work with. And if you'd like a place to begin, I've created something for you. It's called the 72-Hour Compass Reset. Just 10 minutes a day for 3 days. It helps you see whose expectations have been running your life. Discover what you actually want now and leave with one clear next step you can trust. The link is in the description below. And as we close, remember to keep turning toward your own light, because every small, steady step you take in the direction of clarity and courage is already guiding you home. And before you go, please finish this line in the comments. The feeling I've been avoiding is... I read every single one, and I'd love to hear yours. And if you know a woman who needs to hear this message right now, please share this video with her. She may have been pushing regret down for years and hasn't had a name for it yet. Take good care, and I will see you soon.